Good morning, everybody. We have good news today because the World Health Organization Pandemic Treaty, as it's called, has been blocked and defeated and voted down at the Congress of the World Health Organization last week. Now, we've got to be clear on what this is. This wasn't actually a treaty, although it's widely being called a treaty. What this was proposed amendments to the International Health Regulations 2005 by Joe Biden and his regime in the USA that they submitted on January the 18th, and they went quietly under the scenes by stealth, and nobody knew about them until about April. But they had their summit in Geneva last week. And what these regulations would have done is give the World Health Organization total power over national policy and emergency reaction and response, whatever that means, if they decided to declare an emergency or a pandemic in the future. So they would take control of the health services of nations, the policing of nations, what they would need to do to respond to any emergency situation. So you could easily have had a global government effectively implementing tyranny, totalitarianism, lockdowns, social distancing, forced or coerced injections to respond to whatever they say, being implemented in all of the member states around the world. That was what the regulation change would have given the power to the WHO to do. But the majority of members, the member nations, voted against it, which is fantastic. Led by African nations. So God bless Africa and everybody who stood with the nations, with the African nations, Russia, China, Iran, Malaysia, Brazil, many other countries as well, all came together to vote against these the regulation changes which would have allowed this potential tyranny to take place in the future. And it's such a bizarre situation we have. The world is like inverted. So, countries that in the past, were totalitarian are now standing up for freedom. And the collective West, which used to stand up for freedom and democracy, is now trying to implement a tyrannical one world government system. So everything has been inverted. But, what this shows us is that there is hope. The people that want to bring in this new world order, this great reset, etc., are not all powerful and they are not all knowing. And their plans were voted down in Geneva there last week. Now, of course, this is not the end of it. What the collective West has done, it's terrible to say that. Where on earth are we? Is the collective West, where our regimes are trying to continue to push this? But what the collective West's governments, regimes have done is said, well, we want some technical amendments to the amendments. They're going to make another committee to try to rewrite, redraft the amendments that have been submitted, obviously voted down, but bring them back in a couple of years' time. So, as I understand, the plan now is to go away and come up with something else that they can submit in 2 years' time in 2024, which is also the end of a separate timetable that was mooted before these regulations were put in place for an actual treaty. So before Biden submitted these proposed amendments to the regulations this January, most of last year in 2021, people were talking about having an actual treaty, but that idea seemed to have been parked, and what was brought out instead were changes to the regulations. Well, now that's had to be parked, so what they're going to try and do now is probably bring back some kind of actual treaty to be agreed on or voted on in 2024, as well as amendments to the amendments. So, this is a great victory of this battle, this pushback. But of course, the war is not over until the people that are trying to bring in these plans to take away our freedoms are gone, and they are brought before the courts for what they're trying to do to the world. So thank you to everybody in every country who has voted for freedom for the whole world, and for fighting the good fight. Thank you to everybody who's raised their voice in the face of people smearing you as a conspiracy theorist and all these other kinds of smears that they use to actually create and generate huge awareness of this, not just in the collective West, but around the world, so that these things were voted down. So great day, great news that this has happened, but we have to be vigilant and keep on the battle. So God bless you all. Have a great day.